Good morning, dear children. Children, in the previous lesson, we had discussed the story, The Lost Child, in detail. Today, as discussed earlier, we shall explore the analysis of the story. Now, children, as you can see, first, objectives. After reading this unit carefully, you should be able to delineate or describe precisely the plot. Second, you will be able to describe the background. Third, draw out the main features of Mulk Raj Anand's prose style. Now, children, first, let us now read the story. The glossary will provide meanings and explanations of difficult words and phrases. Children, you are instructed to keep a dictionary at hand in case you need to look up meanings of other difficult words. I give you some time to read the chapter. Now, as you can see, the glossary, that is gaily clad humanity, means colorfully dressed people going to the fair. Warren, piece of land where rabbits breed or abound. Brimming over with life and laughter, that is overflowing with joy and laughter. Next, arrested by the toys, that is the child stopped or got attracted by the toys. Red-eyed in his familiar tyrant's way, as usual his father looked stern and harsh with red, angry eyes. Melted by the free spirit of the day, that is softened by the gay and happy atmosphere. Children, these are few very important phrases or words which will help you to understand the story well. Now, moving on to the plot. It is the festival of spring. A child who goes to a fair is enchanted by the spectacle of shops displaying various items on sale. The child first wants to buy a toy, but his intense desire to possess the toy remains unfulfilled because his father looks at him red-eyed in his familiar tyrant's way. His mouth waters for the barfi, which is his favorite sweet, but he suppresses his desire because his plea would not be heeded. Next, he is irresistibly drawn by the colorful garland of Gulmohar sold by a flower seller, but he knows very well that his parents would refuse to buy the garland for him later. He is possessed by an overwhelming desire to have the balloons with the rainbow glory of their silken colors, but he knows that his parents will forbid him on the ground, that he is too old to play with such toys. He wants to listen to the juggler's music that steals into the snake's invisible ears. But he knows again that his parents will not permit him to hear such coarse music. At last, forgetting for a moment the thought of his parents' eternal denial, the child makes a bold request to allow him to go on the merry-go-round and turns to them only to discover to his dismay that they are missing. A full deep cry arose within his dry throat, and with a sudden jerk of his body, he ran from where he stood, crying in red fear, "Mother, father!" Tears ran down from his eyes. Heavy and fierce, his flushed face was convulsed with fear. Here the story reaches the climax, a point of maximum emotional intensity. A man takes pity on the panic-stricken boy and tries to console him by offering sweets, a garland, balloons, and a ride on the roundabout. But the child is no longer tempted by such things, as his foremost longing is to find his parents, without whom he is lost. "I want my mother, I want my father." Now, children, this is the plot of the story. Now, let's see how much we have understood. Let's check our progress. Now, having read the story at least 2 times, you should be able to answer the following. First, who is the narrator of this story? Now, children, the narrator here is the third person. The story is narrated by a third person. What is the mode of narration? Now, when I say what is the mode of narration, while relating the story, the narrator uses the technique of showing. It means he describes the fear, the longing of the child for various things, the parents, reluctance to buy the things, the panic-stricken state of the child when he loses his parents, and the child's insistence on finding his parents. Moreover, the author does not comment on the happenings or characters, but just describes the scene. Now, children, as I had discussed earlier, that we shall explore the analysis of the story today. Now comes the most important part. At this stage, let us analyze the chapter in detail now. Now, children, if I ask you, can you interpret the story at different levels? If you say yes, you see the second question. Do you think this story is symbolic? Our answers to these two questions are in the affirmative. That is positive. It means it is possible to interpret this story at different levels. And this story has symbolic significance also. We presume that you have agreed with me on these points. Let us now proceed further in our discussion. As I have said that it is possible to interpret the story at least at 2 levels. Now, what are the 2 levels and what are the interpretations? Now, children, as you can see here, at the surface level, it appears that the child in the story, like any child, longs for attractive things such as toys, sweets, balloons, and flowers. But once he loses his parents, he loses interest in the things he asked for earlier and insists on finding his father and mother. Now, what happens at a deeper level or metaphysical level? The story is symbolic, as I said. The child represents human beings in general. The fair symbolizes the world. The attractions in the fair appeal to the senses. Toys appeal to the eyes and mind in general. Burfi appeals to the palate. Flowers have visual and olfactory, that is related to smell appeal. Balloons have visual appeal, and music has oral, that is related to listening appeal. In other words, these attractions represent several pleasures, or these are the temptations that human beings come across in the fair of the world. Moreover, the parents in the story represent God. Finally, the lost child represents human beings who are lost in the pleasures or temptations of the world fair and have lost touch with God. Now, children, you need to note that the lost child is based on a situation and not on a character. Now, as you can see, children, in this metaphysical world, sometimes we get lost just to gain some physical wants. We get lost with the touch with God. Now, at a glance, in short, the story, the lost child is narrated by a third person narrator who does not intrude into the action. He is the objective observer, describing, narrating, and recording the events himself. It is possible to interpret the story at different levels. In the story, the narrator blends the concrete and the abstract, the particular and the general, the individual and the collective to create the proper atmosphere for the development of the theme. The author uses a number of visual, oral, and olfactory images to make the scene and situation come alive. Children, I hope the explanation would give you a clear insight of the story. In the next class, I shall provide you NCERT questions along with some extra questions. Till then, children, give more time towards reading of the chapter. Have a good day. Thank you.